Hello, thank you for being in a new video. This time I have an unboxing of the Galaxy A0vi. Let's get started. This is Samsung's cheapest device at present. There are two versions. The one I have, which is the most basic, which has a launch price in Mexico of 2,599 pesos, and the addition of 128 gigabytes, which goes up very little, having a cost of 2,799 pesos. In both cases, I have seen the reference price in dollars so that you have more or less an idea. But remember that the prices here are not the same as over there. It is good news that Samsung has devices this economical, and the truth is that the proposal is not bad at all if you compare it with what other manufacturers can offer in this same price range. So let's take this device out of the box so we can get to know it personally. I would recommend you more to purchase the 128 gigabyte edition because there is very little difference in price, and you double the storage. 64 gigabytes at present will fill you up very quickly. But let's take it out. And the first thing we come across is the device that comes with the back cover. Interesting, Samsung seems to have abandoned the completely smooth design. In this case, it has a texture that feels in the hand and also manages to distinguish in the eye. The truth looks nice for such an inexpensive device. It also incorporates the key island that, as you will notice, is another element at the design level that can give it a much more premium touch than it really is. It has this little bump where we'll see the buttons placed. So let's turn this device on while we see what else comes in the box here, which apparently isn't going to be much. As you notice, it incorporates the key to remove the SIM card tray, and then we'll find the cable, which is from USB-C to USB-C. This is good news because it is a fairly modern cable. It is perceived as a 2024mm device, unlike the vast majority of manufacturers in the price range that will offer you USB-A. The downside here is that, as you'll notice, it's only going to come with the regulatory documentation and more, but it doesn't come with a charger included, so the charger you'll either have to buy separately or use some other charger you already have at home. Definitely that is something that bothers in this price range because there are other manufacturers that, in addition to charger, include a case and some headphones. In the case of Samsung, they go for a much simpler box. So, what do you think if we keep these things, and in a moment I'll tell you the rest of the specification of this device? I already have the device set up, so let's go ahead and tell you the main specs of this device. It's 8mm thick and weighs 189 grams. So as you'll notice, it's got a design that's okay. I think it looks low-end, definitely because it's a low-end device. The bezels are noticeably thick on higher-end Samsung devices. We could complain about this, but in this price range, I think we can still forgive it. The screen is 6.7 inches across its diagonal. It has HD Plus resolution, is an LCD panel, and offers 60 Hz. I think the only thing we could complain about would be 60 Hz. We would have liked to see 90 Hz. However, I think it helps the processor to have a lower refresh rate display, so it doesn't have as much of a workload because it's a processor that's not as powerful. But in the review, we will see in a little more detail the performance experience it can give us. For starters, the screen is simple, although still understandable for the price range. In this case, it only integrates one speaker with this new Samsung design of a single perforation, unlike the vast majority of manufacturers that have a grid design. And as you can see, yes, it does have headphone jack. The front camera is 8 megapixel with f2.0 aperture and comes in this little drop notch. And while it may look very overexposed and burnt in the preview, I think the result after taking the picture looks much better in terms of the balance of highlights and shadows, although it doesn't have as high a level of detail. So it's a simple photograph, but I think in Gamma it can deliver. In fact, in the Gamma it is positive that it does make a good balance of light and shadow. On the back we'll find a 15 megapixel main camera with f1.8 aperture, and a 2 megapixel marketing camera with f2.4 aperture. You're looking at some of the results. I think the main camera takes good pictures with good color and even good level of detail when zooming in. 2x does lose a bit of quality, so it still doesn't zoom into the sensor, but I think in the price range we can accept that. The maximum zoom is 10x. Obviously, you're not going to see such a high level of detail, but again, in the price range, it performs well, and now you're seeing the result of portrait photography, which fortunately does keep objects in focus. In this case, the secondary camera is for depth detection. It seems that at least this way it manages to keep objects in focus. As for video recording, note that it supports full HD at 60 frames per second. Something curious for the price range, and in the case of the rear camera, it can only be full HD or HD. For the price range, I think it is very good. Consider that other manufacturers still dare to offer only HD resolution on the front camera, so somehow I think it does not disappoint. The battery has a 5000 mAh capacity and supports 25-watt charging, although it is not included in the box. The good news is that you can use power delivery chargers, which in some ways might be cheaper than the original Samsung charger or even easier to acquire, but it's definitely bad news that the charger is not included. Also, I wouldn't recommend you to buy the 25-watt charger directly, because even though it supports that charge and is not going to be damaged, it's actually going to charge a little bit slower. So if you have the ability to buy the 15-watt charger, I would recommend it more because you're going to save more money and you're possibly going to find the same charging speed. In that case, it comes with side fingerprint reader, which is expected in the range, and even some other manufacturers don't have fingerprint reader in this entry range. So it stands out as well. And this device comes with Android 14 and 6.1 factory installed. Remember that Samsung offers several add-on options, some experimental. So I think if we're going to find good options at the software level here, it can outperform virtually all of its competitors for the experience that it can give you, and even note that you could also connect to the entire Galaxy ecosystem with the Samsung Wearable app or Samsung Health. So I think that in this price range, it far exceeds all in this section. And finally, it comes with 4 GB of RAM, which I think in this price range is expected. Only in Galaxy devices sometimes falls very short. So the recommendation would be to only open 2 or 3 applications maximum so that you still retain good performance. If you open more than that, it can possibly get a little slower. Although it supposedly offers us virtual RAM, but believe me, it's not going to help much to say. Let me quickly open some system applications so you can more or less see the experience you can have, in this case with 3 applications open at the same time. Notice that even 3 is still an acceptable amount for this device. Obviously it's not going to be as snappy a device, but trust me that in the price range most devices are going to give you very similar performance. Fortunately, it still seems to be performing well enough anyway, and there are 64 or 128 GB versions. Storage right out of the box, it was showing me 20.4 GB used, so your best bet will be to purchase the 128 version. If you get the 64, it will fill up very quickly. Finally, the processor is the Helium G85, a processor that is not modern, but we would not expect something much more powerful in this price range. In fact, most manufacturers in this price range will go for Unisoc processors. So I think it's good news to see that processor. It is a processor that we already know, but if you want to have a numerical reference, in Geekbench it gave us scores of 413 points in single core and 1369 in multi-core, and in Antutu it scored 252,611 points. I insist that for this price range I think it is a good enough processor, so Samsung seems to me to have done a good job with this device within its range. Possibly it will be the best you'll find, especially for the benefits of having a Galaxy, for example Samsung members, which will give you access to many discounts or special promotions, and what I already mentioned about the Galaxy ecosystem and the overall experience of the software. However, in the video review we will have more detailed tests. For now we have reached the end of this video. If you liked it, you know you can let us know, and we'll see you next time.